it is finally time to talk about Stranger Things. Everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I know I'm like a bajillion weeks, months late on this, but I'm finally here to talk about and give my review of Stranger Things Season 5. Obviously, I have seen all of the things all over the internet of everybody's opinions on this season. And I am here to say that I have now seen it. I have now seen the full thing, all 3 volumes, parts, whatever. I've seen it all, and I'm here to talk about it. So, first, I want to start off by saying, I don't know if I'm crazy or not, but I personally don't think this season was as bad as everybody's saying it is. I'm not saying that necessarily everybody thinks it's bad. I just have seen all of these complaints and about it, and also the fact that I've seen people give like the not the finale, but like episode 7, the episode before the finale. That's like the lowest rated episode of Stranger Things out there, and I'm like, I don't necessarily see it. I mean, overall, I thought that it was the conclusion that Stranger Things needed. And to me, everything made sense. I don't know if that's just, I don't know what that says about me, but everything that happened in the season, like, to me made sense. And it had really great moments. Yes, was it a bit messy at times, and were there some things missing? Yes. I won't deny that those things were missing, but they just, I either just didn't care about them, or they just didn't bother me. So now let's get into it. Off positively, I really liked if you just look at the basic overall plot to this season, I very much enjoyed it. You start off with episode 1, and it's, there's a time jump from the end of season 4, which again is also something that I've seen people complain about, is that they wish that it started, like directly after the events of season 4. I personally don't think that was really that necessary. They did. I think we could maybe just show like maybe instead of like the flashback to Will in the Upside Down at the very beginning of the first episode, like we could have gotten a thing of like their immediate reaction to what happened at the end of season 4. But I kind of liked how it started, how we got that flashback with Will at the very beginning to see and establish what the true connection between Will and Vecna is, and that we know that Vecna personally chose Will for a specific reason. We just don't necessarily know that at that time yet. So I personally like that, and I liked how it then skipped ahead to show how people have just like adjusted to this, but then also how our characters are dealing with this, how it's probably hard for them to adjust back to a sort of normal life when they know that that Vecna is still out there, and that they're literally doing these crawls that we see at the beginning in the first episode. all the time, or not all the time, but like on a regular basis, how they established that they have been doing these, because it shows that it's not like they haven't been doing anything in this time jump. Like we see that they've been doing these crawls to look for Vecna. We see that Elle has been training, like it wasn't like they weren't doing anything. So I liked how they showed that. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, I liked how it started off, how they establish and show what our characters have been up to since the season 4 and what they're doing to look for Vecna. And we know that they've been doing these crawls and they haven't found anything. And then finally a Demogorgon shows back up and attacks the Wheeler house and obviously severely injures Karen and takes Holly. So that's how our characters are alerted that Vecna is now active and back, and they start to, you know, formalize this plan to formalize this final plan of trying to figure out what Vecna's true plan is and how they are going to defeat him. I feel like that's your, you know, pretty typical finale to a show that has been going on for this amount of time. Overall basic plot was pretty decent. I feel like this is something that, because a lot of people are solely just so focused on all the negatives for this season, they haven't really noticed this thing that I think is personally a positive for season 5. And that is, I feel like we got some pretty good, like, character developments and, you know, like, conclusions in this season. The first one that comes to my mind is honestly Holly. Honestly, because obviously we've seen her before, but in all the previous seasons she was very little and didn't really have that much screen time in the past seasons. But now that Holly's older and we've actually got to see her and get to know her, I feel like just the development that she had just in this one season that she was in, pretty much, I thought that she developed pretty well, because, you know, she started out as this, you know, really, like, shy and quiet girl who had this weird imaginary friend named Mr. Whatsit, and, like, defend herself or, like, help save her mom get attacked by this Demogorgon. And obviously when she was taken by Vecna and met Max within Vecna's mind, she obviously grew and developed into this leader who can really help others and defend herself and defend others, which I personally thought for only having one season of her character and her character development, I thought that was really well done. The development of Will, it was, you know, he did it in order to, like, keep, you know, Vecna out of his head and to, like, keep, you know, Vecna from showing him these bad thoughts. But this was kind of finally the season that I felt like we really got to see, like, Will, like, you know what I mean? Was finally able to, like, obviously he's not, like, completely over his trauma that he endured, but he finally, like, really came into himself and really accepted himself for who he really is. And obviously a big part of that was accepting the fact that he's gay, which I will get into that a bit later, into some of the things that I liked that others didn't necessarily. I liked how we got to finally, you know, see Will, like, really be a part of the action and not just be this guy that just goes and, like, feels when Vecna, the Mind Flayer, is close or is coming. Like that's not his only role anymore. Like he was really able to like actually really do something, and obviously his powers, whatever they were, really helped with that. So I really liked Will's character. I liked how we sort of got a conclusion to the whole Nancy, Jonathan, Steve love triangle thing, which is another thing I will say. I am so glad that Nancy didn't end up with either of them, because that was my big thing. Was I was like, yes, there's a part of me that like if I had to pick, I would pick Nancy and Jonathan, just because I think that out of the two, I think Jonathan is better suited for Nancy. But in reality, I was just like, just let Nancy just be on her own and find a even better guy that's even better than Jonathan and Steve, because in reality, I feel like she was too good for either of them. And I did really love like sort of the things that they did to like kind of build it up. Like obviously the season started with you know with Jonathan still having this idea that Nancy still has feelings for Steve, and is like trying to do all these things to like win her back over, and obviously has this ring that he's planning on proposing to her, because he thinks that she is that they should stay together, obviously. And then like that keeps going for like most of the season of that's like the main like kind of beef between Steve and Jonathan, is that they both like think that they are the better one for Nancy. You like flash forward, we get Jonathan and Nancy's breakup scene when they think they're about to die. And I thought that scene was really well done, and that was like finally the moment where Jonathan and Nancy finally admit that they are like the only thing that brings them together is their trauma, and that really, besides that, they don't have anything in common. And just them coming to that realization that they really, as much as they thought they were meant for each other, they really aren't. And I thought, and the whole like unproposed, like the unproposal, I thought that was like incredibly well done. And then obviously, and also in that moment is when Jonathan realizes that like after Nancy told him that, like Jonathan has finally realized that Nancy really doesn't have these feelings for Steve again that Jonathan thought that she did. And so that makes Jonathan have a much better idea of who Steve is in his head, which then leads to Steve's almost death when he falls off of when Steve almost falls off the tower, and Jonathan is the one to save him, which, and honestly, in my opinion, is a good like full circle moment of like, there's been all of these seasons of Steve and Jonathan having this like beef and like trying to compete as to see who is better for Nancy, and to finally have that moment of accepts the fact that Steve is a good guy and doesn't really have the feelings for him that he thought, and to finally have that moment of Jonathan rescuing Steve. And then in their talk afterwards, when they get to Dimension X, whatever it's called, and like there's the line of like Jonathan says something that like I know, like as much as I hate you, I never would want you dead, or something like that. And I just thought that was incredibly well done. And it also, like, having Jonathan be the one to save Steve also just allows for Jonathan to have finally done something. I feel like for a lot of the show, people's complaints have been the fact that Jonathan is just kind of there and doesn't really do a lot, so I feel like having him be the one to save Steve, not only is it giving him something to do, but it also like shows the growth and development that he has had as a character and as a person. Yeah, moving on to a bit of the negatives. Again, like I said at the beginning, I'm not denying there is a bit of messiness. Some of the plot lines, obviously they had to like jump around to so many plot lines because we just have so many characters. You will admit that there was some messiness, and like trying to cut around to all these different storylines was messy. That I didn't think bothered me as much, but like thinking back on it now, it still doesn't bother me as much as I've seen it bother some other people. But it has started to bug me a little bit, is the whole situation with there being no, Demogorgons or Demodogs or Demobats or anything like that in Dimension X when they go to defeat Vecna. Obviously, I am not entirely bothered by that, and I sort of understand because obviously there was the thing in the documentary where it was either one of the Duffer Brothers or one of the other writers said that, oh, they would have Demogorgon fatigue or something like that, because there have already been so many scenes in the show of people fighting Demogorgons, and as much as do I necessarily agree with them saying that there was Demogorgon fatigue? No, but I can understand where they're coming from, because yes, there was a whole lot of other scenes where, like, we obviously had the scene at the Wheeler house when the Demogorgon first initially attacked the Wheelers and Holly was taken. We had the Demogorgon when they were trying to rescue the kids from the military facility, and the Demogorgons attacked them there. The Demogorgons attacking, or the Demodogs attacking Lucas and Max and Robin and Vicky in the hospital. Like, there was already all of these scenes of our characters fighting Demogorgons or Demodogs or something like that. And so I do, like, already in the season. And so to have them, like, fight even more of them in the final battle, stand that could have been, like, even more. But there is a part of me that's, like, I think the only thing that makes it bother me a little bit is, like, this was the epic final battle. Like, TV shows and movies, like, when there's a final battle, it's like you're not just battling the big bad, but the big bad has their foot soldiers or whatever it is. Even if it's not like all together in the same place, like there's typically like in a final battle, there's like people fighting all of the army, and then it'll like cut back to the main protagonist fighting the main villain or whatever. There is a part of me that kind of wishes and I feel like it kind of would have made the final battle be a bit more epic if there was like, if not only they had to fight Vecna, but they also had to fight like a bunch, like even more like Demogorgons and Demodogs. But I think the reason why it doesn't bother me as much, and I feel like why I still kind of understand the Duffer Brothers or whoever it was his decision to have them not be there, is, again, I do kind of understand that we've already seen a bunch of other Demogorgon fights in the season. Them wanting to focus on them solely defeating Vecna, and that was probably what they wanted the final battle to be. Yes, was it probably because they didn't want to, or didn't think they had the budget to, CGI and special effects all of these Demogorgons and Demodogs? Yes, that probably was the reason. What they were trying to do with the final battle is that they knew how much people loved the end of season 3 and the Battle of Starcourt, and I think they realized that people love seeing this giant monster and having all of the characters finally come together and just be like throwing things at it, throwing fireworks at it, and doing all this stuff to bring this one thing down, I think they noticed that that is a thing that a lot of the fans loved. And seeing that camaraderie between the whole gang. Because of that, that's what they wanted the final battle to be. Is not like 11 fighting Vecna on her own and then everybody else is, fighting their own individual Demogorgon over here and over here. Like, they wanted this one big monster and having everybody coming together to defeat this one thing, and it felt like everybody coming together to defeat this one thing. So I think, in my personal opinion, I think that makes sense as a reason to why there was no other creatures in Dimension X and why they wanted the final battle to be the way it was. A couple of other things, again, like I mentioned, I'll just go through this really quickly. I liked Will's coming out scene. I don't care what anybody says. I liked it. I thought it was well done. I thought it was well acted. And to anybody that says that Noah Schnapp wasn't good acting during that scene, you're crazy. I think you have to think of like what the context of that moment is, and thinking that takes place in the 80s, where it was even like 10 times more frowned upon to come out as gay back then than it is now. It made total sense that like everybody had to be there. No, that didn't make total sense, but also, to be fair, like if you actually watch the scene, Will just tells Mike that everybody has to be there. And in my mind, that was like Will telling Mike to like, get everybody together. And so if Will just says everybody, well, Mike doesn't necessarily know what that means. Like, if Will says everybody needs to know, then probably Mike's gonna be like everybody. So that's probably why everybody was there. But I thought it was really well done, and to see like the way they did it, I thought was really well, because again, it was really frowned upon to come out as gay back then, and to have it be done in a way that was, let's say, like, yes, I'm like you, but I'm also different. All the things that we, used to love to do and stuff like that. I don't know what I'm saying. But I thought the coming out scene was really well done, and I think it was a long time coming and confirms a lot of suspicions that obviously people have had that Will, I think people have thought Will was gay for a long time, but like to finally have the like confirmation that he is, I think was, at least to me, it was satisfying. And also, I probably get that people were disappointed that Byler didn't happen, but I really wasn't the biggest Byler shipper. I'm not really the biggest Byler shipper in the world, so I don't really care about that. Okay, moving on to, because this video is already becoming long enough, I'm gonna combine these last 2 points. I very much enjoyed the ending, at least the epilogue part of it. I enjoyed the finale episode as a whole. I thought I very much enjoyed it and thought it was a really good finale. But in terms of the actual ending, like the epilogue and like seeing where all the characters end up, I personally liked it and thought that all of the characters ended up getting the ending that at least I thought that they deserved. I think 11 really deserved to die, kind of. I think that the reason that they give for why 11 has to sacrifice herself makes sense. Makes sense that probably because if she was still around, there probably still would be, certain government people that would want to come after her and experiment on her, which would just continue all these bad things to happen. So it makes sense that if she is gone, then like gone for good, like then none of this stuff can ever really happen again. And so I think that reasoning makes sense. Is there a part of me that wishes that 11 got a happy ending and was able to live and like be able to live her life and experience the world that she never got to do because her childhood was essentially taken from her, yes. For a conclusion to happen and for all of these events to be over, I understand why her ending had to be the way it was. In conclusion, I think I would overall give season 5 of Stranger Things around an 8-ish out of 10. Or maybe even 7.5 to 8 out of 10. I thought that the ending was good. I thought that the overall season was done as well as they could with having all these storylines and characters and stuff like that. So yeah, overall around an 7.5 to 8-ish out of 10. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of Stranger Things 5. Again, sorry I'm super late on this. I, was just able to actually watch the season not too long ago. Busy with a bunch of other stuff, and so I'm just now getting around to film this now. So again, sorry for how late this is. Comment down below what you guys thought of this season. Make sure to follow my other socials, TikTok and Instagram and Letterboxd. And make sure to like this video and subscribe. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.